Before we get to the story, I'd like to say thanks so much for visiting my new channel. I'm going to be uploading cosmic horror related stories every single day. So if that sounds good, please drop a like and don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot, especially when just getting started. I hope you enjoy the story. I've been alone in this tin can for 6 months, and I'm finally going home. My name is Shaun Cooper, and I'm an astronaut. Well, I guess I should say I was an astronaut. I don't really know what I am anymore. But let me start from the beginning, back when things still made sense. 6 months ago, I launched on a solo mission to Mars. It was supposed to be routine, collect samples, run some experiments, take a bunch of pictures, the kind of stuff that sounds amazing when you tell people at parties, but is actually pretty boring when you're living it. Mostly, it was just me, floating around, eating freeze-dried food, and counting down the days until I could see Grace again. Grace is my girlfriend. 3 years we'd been together. She wanted to get married before I left, but I told her to wait. I wanted to propose the right way after I got back. I had the ring picked out and everything. I spent 2 months' salary on it, which my buddy Kevin said was crazy, but I didn't care. I was going to take her to this little Italian restaurant in Boston where we had our first date, the one with the red checkered tablecloths and the waiter who always remembered our order. I spent a lot of time in space thinking about that moment, imagining her face when I got down on one knee, the way her eyes would get all watery like they did whenever she got emotional. I probably replayed it in my head 1,000 times. The journey back started off normal. I ran through all my checks, fired up the engines, and watched Mars shrink behind me. For the first few days, everything was fine. Great even. I was going home. I was going to eat real food, a burger maybe, or pizza, or my mum's pot roast. I was going to feel wind on my face. I was going to take a shower that lasted more than 2 minutes. I was going to kiss Grace and never let go. I talked to Mission Control every day during the first week of the return trip. Thompson was usually on shift, and we'd joke around about sports and movies and all the normal stuff I'd missed. He told me the Red Sox were having a terrible season. He told me there was a new superhero movie coming out that looked awful, normal things, Earth things. But then, about 2 weeks into the return journey, the transmissions started getting weird. Thompson's voice would cut out mid-sentence. There'd be long pauses where I could hear breathing but no words. Once, I swear I heard him say something about the dark days. But when I asked him to repeat it, he acted like he hadn't said anything at all. Then the transmissions stopped completely. I tried not to panic. Equipment malfunctions happen. Maybe there was a solar flare messing with the signal. Maybe they were doing maintenance on the communication systems. I told myself a dozen different reasonable explanations, but none of them felt right. When I got close enough to see Earth on my monitors, that's when the real fear started. I can't really explain it. It was like when you walk into your house and you know someone's been there, even though nothing looks different, that kind of wrong. Earth showed up on my monitors right where it should be, but something about its position felt off, like it had shifted a few degrees in a direction that shouldn't exist. I checked my navigation systems 3 times. Everything said I was on the right trajectory. Everything said Earth was exactly where it should be. But my gut told me something else. And in space, you learn to trust your gut because your gut is usually right. I told myself I was being stupid. I'd been in space for 6 months. My brain was probably just fried from all the isolation. Sometimes astronauts get a little strange when they're alone too long. I'd heard stories, but the feeling didn't go away. It got stronger. I tried calling mission control in Houston. Standard procedure when you're coming in for landing. I expected to hear Thompson's voice, or maybe Rodriguez if it was second shift. Instead, I got static, just pure crackling static that made my teeth hurt and my head pound. I switched frequencies. More static. I went through every channel I had, getting more desperate with each one. Finally, on a frequency I almost never used, I picked up something. Voices, but they were distant and distorted, like someone was talking to me from the bottom of a well, or through water, or from another dimension entirely. Mission control, this is Luna 5 requesting landing coordinates, I said. My voice came out shaky. That was my designation, Luna 5. I know it doesn't make sense for a Mars mission, but that's what they called it. Something about the numbering system they used. The voice that came back made my stomach drop. Luna 5, please confirm your origin point. I'm returning from Mars. 6-month mission. Launch date was April 15th. I should be in your system. Long silence. I counted the seconds. 30 of them before the voice came back. Please stand by. I stood by. Well, floated by, I guess. My hands were shaking. I gripped the edge of the control panel to steady them. I stared out the viewport at Earth, and the more I looked at it, the more wrong it seemed. The continents looked weird. North America was stretched out, like someone had grabbed it from both ends and pulled, or maybe squashed it. I couldn't tell. The proportions were just off. And the clouds, they were moving in directions that didn't make sense. Weather patterns don't just randomly shift. They follow rules, physics. But these clouds were swirling in ways that made my eyes hurt to watch. The voice came back. Different person this time. Female. Scared. This is Earth. But we don't have anyone on Mars. I laughed. It just came out, this nervous high-pitched sound that I barely recognized as my own voice. That's hilarious. Really funny. Can you please connect me to Thompson? Or Rodriguez? Anyone from my mission team? Sir, we don't have those names in our database. Please state your full name and mission parameters. The laugh died in my throat. What do you mean you don't have those names? Thompson's been with the program for 15 years. Everyone knows Thompson. Sir, please state your full name. I went through everything. My name, my launch date, my mission objectives, the name of my spacecraft, the facility I launched from, the names of everyone on my team. I gave them every detail I could think of, talking faster and faster, my voice getting higher. The whole time, Earth kept getting closer, and I kept seeing more things that were wrong. The oceans looked too dark, almost black in some places, like they were filled with ink instead of water. And the moon. I could see the moon, and it was in the wrong phase. It should have been a crescent, barely visible, but it looked almost full, hanging there like a dead eye watching me. Luna 5, the voice said, and this time it definitely sounded scared. We're going to give you landing coordinates. You need to follow them exactly. Do you understand? Exactly. Don't deviate even slightly. Yeah, I understand. Just tell me where to go. They sent me coordinates for somewhere in Nevada, not my normal landing site in Florida. not anywhere I recognized. Some facility I'd never heard of, located in the middle of nowhere according to my maps. But I didn't have much choice. I was running low on fuel, and I was running low on food, and I was running low on the ability to pretend everything was fine. The descent through the atmosphere felt wrong. The resistance was different. It felt like I was pushing through something thicker than air, like moving through honey or syrup or something that shouldn't exist. Gravity pulled at me in a way that didn't match what I remembered. Too strong in some moments, too weak in others. By the time I touched down, I was sweating through my suit, and my heart was hammering so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I had to sit there for a full minute before I trusted myself to move. I landed on a stretch of flat desert. There was a facility nearby, but it looked old, abandoned almost, like it had been sitting empty for years. The walls were stained with rust or dirt or something else I didn't want to think about. The sky above me was the wrong color. Not quite blue, more purple, if that makes any sense. Like someone had mixed blue paint with red and spread it across the entire dome of heaven. And the mountains in the distance, they seemed to shimmer, like heat waves, even though it wasn't hot. They looked almost translucent in places. I could see through them to what was behind them, except nothing was behind them. Just more purple sky and a horizon that curved wrong. A ground crew approached in hazmat suits. They moved slowly, carefully, like I was a bomb that might go off if they got too close, or like I was infected with something they didn't want to catch. I climbed out of my spacecraft on shaky legs and stood there, breathing air that tasted slightly metallic, like pennies, like blood. One of them stepped forward, a woman. She pulled off her helmet, and I saw a tired face with grey hair and sad eyes. Eyes that had seen things they didn't want to talk about. "Shaun Cooper?" she asked. "Yeah, that's me. What's going on? Why the hazmat suits? Am I sick? Did something happen during the mission?" "I'm Dr. Patricia Owens. We need to talk, but not here. Come with me." She led me into the facility, through empty corridors that echoed with our footsteps. The walls were bare concrete. No decorations, no signs, nothing that made it feel like a place where people actually worked. Our footsteps sounded wrong too, like they were bouncing back at us from farther away than they should have been. We ended up in a small room with a table and 2 chairs. Both of them looked like they'd been there for decades. The table had scratches on it, old coffee stains. Someone had carved something into the wood, but it was worn down too much to read. She sat down and gestured for me to do the same. I did. My legs felt like water. "This is going to be hard to hear," she said. "But I need you to listen carefully. This is Earth, your home. But it's not your Earth." I stared at her. "What does that mean?" She took a deep breath. 3 months ago, something happened. We still don't understand what. Everyone on Earth experienced 3 days of darkness. The sun went out. Just went out. No warning, no explanation. One moment it was there, the next moment it wasn't. People panicked. There were riots, suicides, prayers. Entire cities descended into chaos. People thought it was the end of the world. And maybe it was, in a way. She paused, watching my face. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. And then, after 3 days, the sun came back, just like it left. One moment darkness, the next moment light. But when it did, things were different. Small things mostly. Buildings in different places, streets with different names. Some people remembered events that others didn't. Some people who had died were suddenly alive, walking around like nothing had happened. Some people who were alive had never existed. Families woke up in houses that weren't theirs, with children they'd never had, or without children they remembered raising. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I know, but here you are." "Different how?" I asked. My voice sounded far away, like it was coming from someone else. "Small things mostly," she repeated. "But sometimes big things. Countries with different borders. Wars that did or didn't happen. Technologies that exist or don't exist. And some people, like you, ended up in the wrong version entirely." My mouth felt dry. "You're saying there are multiple Earths?" "We don't know what to call them. Multiple realities, maybe. Parallel universes. Alternate timelines. The terms don't really matter. What matters is that you're from one, and this is another. You're what we call a slide. You slipped between versions during the transition." "That's insane. That's not possible." "I know how it sounds. But we have 47 other slides here at this facility alone. All of them from different versions. All of them remembering things that didn't happen in this timeline, or remembering things differently than everyone else." I sat there, trying to process it. My brain felt like it was full of static. My family, my girlfriend, Grace. Where is she? Dr. Owens pulled out a tablet and typed something. Her face got even sadder, if that was possible. "We have a Grace Foster in the database. She lives in Seattle. She's married. 2 kids." "No. Grace lives in Boston. She's a teacher, 3rd grade. We've been together for 3 years. She's not married. She's waiting for me to come home so we can get married. In your timeline, yes. But here..." She turned the tablet to show me a picture. It was Grace. Same face, same dark hair that fell just past her shoulders, same smile that always made my chest feel warm. But her eyes were different, harder somehow, older, like she'd lived through things my Grace hadn't. And she was standing next to a man I'd never seen before, holding 2 children, 2 little girls with dark hair like hers. "She doesn't know who you are," Dr. Owen said gently. "In this version, you 2 never met." I couldn't breathe. The room felt too small. The walls were closing in. I stood up too fast, and the chair fell over with a crash that echoed through the concrete room. "I need to see her. I need to talk to her. She'll remember me. She has to remember me. Shaun, listen to me. You can't. It would only hurt both of you. She has a life here, a family, a husband. You're a stranger to her. Less than a stranger. You're someone who doesn't exist in her world. But I love her." "I know. I'm so sorry." I don't really remember the next few hours. They gave me a room in the facility, 4 walls painted institutional beige, a bed with scratchy sheets, a window that looked out at the purple-tinted sky. I lay down and stared at the ceiling and tried to understand how I could be home and still be completely lost. I cried for a while. Then I stopped crying and just felt numb. Then I cried again. At some point, someone brought me food. I didn't eat it. I couldn't imagine ever eating again. Over the next few days, Dr. Owens explained more. I wasn't the only slide. It was happening more and more often. Objects, animals, sometimes people. Most slides were small. A book that didn't exist before. A bird with the wrong colored feathers. a song everyone knew, but that had never been recorded. Human slides were rare. Most of them didn't survive the transition. Something about our biology made us fragile during the shift. Our cells couldn't handle being in the wrong reality. They broke down, gave out. I met some of the others who had survived. There was a woman named Kelly who remembered a world where the Cold War never ended, where the Berlin Wall still stood, and America and Russia were locked in a stalemate that had lasted 70 years. A man named Robert who came from a version where Australia was called New Holland and had been colonized by the Dutch instead of the British. A teenager named Lisa who insisted that in her world, humans had colonized the moon 50 years ago, and there were cities up there with millions of people. We sat around at night in the common room, sharing stories about our versions of Earth, the little differences that no one else noticed but us. Kelly talked about the checkpoints she remembered, the fear of nuclear war that had never faded. Robert showed us pictures of animals from his world, kangaroos with slightly different shapes, birds with different songs. Lisa cried when she talked about the moon, about looking up and not seeing the lights of the cities she remembered. It was like being homesick for a place that didn't exist anymore, or maybe had never existed at all. I couldn't tell which was worse. They gave me a new identity, new papers, new history. I was still Shaun Cooper, but now I was a Shaun Cooper who had never been to space, who had worked in construction for the past 5 years, who had no girlfriend, no ring picked out, no plans for Italian restaurants. They created a whole fake life for me, complete with tax returns and a credit history and everything. I tried to find my parents. They were alive in this version, living in the same house I grew up in, same blue paint on the shutters, same crack in the driveway where I had wiped out on my bike when I was 8. I drove out there one day, parked across the street, and watched them through the window. My mum was cooking dinner. I could see her moving around the kitchen, and I knew exactly what she was making just from the way she moved. Spaghetti. She always stirred the sauce in the same way, that little figure-8 pattern. My dad was reading the paper in his chair, the same chair he'd had since I was a kid, worn down in all the same places. Everything looked normal. Everything looked like home. I knocked on the door. My mum answered. She smiled politely, the way you smile at a stranger selling something or asking for directions. "Can I help you?" "Mum," I said. "It's me, Shaun." Her smile faded. Confusion crossed her face. Then something that looked like fear. "I'm sorry. I think you have the wrong house." "No, I don't. I grew up here. My room was upstairs, second door on the left. I used to hide comic books under the loose floorboard by the window. You used to make me hot chocolate with extra marshmallows when I couldn't sleep. Dad taught me to ride a bike in the driveway. I crashed into Mrs. Henderson's mailbox, and we had to replace it." Her face went pale. She gripped the door frame. "We do have a son named Shaun, but he's an accountant. He lives in Denver with his wife. They have a baby. I don't know who you are, but you need to leave. Right now. Mum, please. Leave or I'm calling the police." She shut the door. I heard her lock it, multiple locks, like she was afraid I might try to break in. I sat in my car and cried, like I hadn't cried since I was a kid. Big, ugly sobs that shook my whole body. I cried until there was nothing left. Then I drove back to the facility. I saw Grace once, just once. I was in Seattle for some meeting with government people who wanted to study the slides. They had all these questions about what I remembered, what was different, how I felt, like we were lab rats in some experiment. I knew she lived there, and I told myself I wouldn't look for her, but I did anyway. I couldn't help it. It took me 2 days to find her. I felt like a stalker, driving past addresses, checking the names on mailboxes. But I had to see her, just once, just to know she was real. I found her at a park with her kids, 2 little girls, maybe 5 and 7 years old. They were playing on the swings, and Grace was pushing them, laughing at something the younger one said. She looked happy, really, truly happy. Her face had this glow to it, this contentment that I'd seen before. That's how she looked when we'd talk about our future together, about the house we'd buy someday and the kids we'd have. Except now, she had that future, just not with me. I watched from behind a tree, like some kind of creep. I must have stood there for 20 minutes, just watching her live this life that should have been ours. The older girl said something that made Grace laugh, and the sound of it hit me like a punch to the gut. That was my Grace's laugh. Same sound, same way her head tilted back, same way her eyes crinkled at the corners. But she wasn't my Grace. Not here. I wanted to walk over. I wanted to tell her everything about us, about our life together, about the ring I never got to give her, about the plans we made and the future we'd imagined. I wanted to see if maybe, somehow, some part of her remembered me. If maybe some echo of our love had survived the transition between worlds. But I didn't, because Dr. Owens was right. She had a life here, a good one, a family that loved her and needed her. And I was just a ghost from a world that didn't matter anymore. What right did I have to haunt her? I turned around and walked away. My legs felt heavy, like they were made of lead. I never went back to Seattle. I couldn't. The worst part is that things keep changing. Even here, in this wrong version of Earth, reality keeps shifting. Small things at first. I'd remember a building being blue, and then, the next day, it would be red. And everyone would insist it had always been red. When I'd argue, they'd look at me like I was crazy. Show me pictures from years ago with the building red in every single one. A street sign would change names overnight. I'd drive down Maple Street one day, and the next day the sign would say Oak Street, and no one would remember it ever being different, except me. The slides always remembered. My roommate at the facility was a guy named Brian. Good guy, funny, helped me adjust to everything. He was from a version where World War II never happened, where some treaty in the 20s had prevented the whole thing. We'd stay up late talking about our worlds, comparing notes. He taught me how to play this card game from his version. I taught him about baseball, which didn't exist in his world. One morning I woke up and he was gone. Not just gone from the room, gone from existence. His bed was there, but all his stuff was different. Someone else's stuff. Books I'd never seen. Clothes that were too small for Brian. Nobody remembered him except me. I went to Dr. Owens, frantic, asking what happened to him. She looked at me confused. Who's Brian? My roommate, Brian, the guy from the version without World War II. He's been here for 8 months. She checked her tablet, scrolling through names. I don't have anyone named Brian in the system. Are you feeling okay, Shaun? That's when I realized we might not even be safe here. The sliding wasn't over. We weren't stuck in this wrong version of Earth. We were falling through versions one after another, each one slightly different from the last. People were disappearing, not dying, just ceasing to exist in this particular version of reality. And everyone's memories adjusted to match, like the universe was editing itself in real time. Everyone except the slides. We remembered. We always remembered. Dr. Owens pulled me aside one evening a few weeks later. We were in her office, and she looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her hands shook when she poured coffee. "I need to tell you something," she said, "and I need you to not panic." "Okay, the sliding is accelerating. We're seeing more cases every week, dozens of them now. And it's not just people anymore, it's places. Entire towns are appearing that weren't there before, islands in the ocean that shouldn't exist. We found a city in Montana that no one remembers building, but it's been there long enough to have a 100-year-old church. Mountains have moved. Rivers have changed course. We think reality itself is unstable, still shifting, still breaking. Why? My voice came out as a whisper. We don't know. Maybe whatever happened during those 3 days of darkness broke something fundamental, like a crack in the foundation of the universe. Or maybe it's always been like this, and we just never noticed. Either way, it means you might not stay here. None of the slides might stay here. What do you mean? You might shift again, fall into another version, and another one after that. We don't know if there's an end to it. We don't know if you can ever stop sliding. I felt cold, colder than I'd ever felt in space. So I could keep falling forever, through infinite versions of Earth, each one more wrong than the last. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I could see the truth in her eyes. I go outside at night now and look at the stars. They're in the wrong positions, constellations I don't recognize. The Big Dipper is gone. Orion is gone. In their place are patterns that hurt my brain to look at. Sometimes I see things moving up there that shouldn't exist. Lights that pulse with colors I don't have names for. Shapes that seem to twist in dimensions I can't perceive. I wonder if there are other versions of me out there, other Shauns scattered across other Earths, all lost in the same way. Maybe on my original Earth, there's a version of me that doesn't belong, and everyone can tell something's wrong with him. Maybe Grace is with that Shaun, and she can sense he's not quite right, not quite the man she fell in love with. Maybe there are infinite Shauns, all of us displaced, all of us looking for homes that don't exist anymore. The thought keeps me up at night. Last night, I saw something in the sky that I can't explain. It looked like a crack, not in space, but in reality itself, like the universe was a painting and someone had torn through the canvas. It stretched across half the sky, this jagged line that shouldn't exist. Other people saw it too. They pointed and took pictures on their phones, and the news stations talked about it for hours. Scientists gave explanations about atmospheric phenomena and optical illusions. Then by morning, they'd all forgotten about it. The news archives showed different stories from that night. The pictures people took had vanished from their phones. Everyone went about their day, like nothing had happened. But I remember. I took a picture too, and mine didn't vanish. I have it saved on my phone, and I look at it sometimes. The crack is still there in the image. Undeniable proof that something is deeply wrong with this world. I remember everything, every version, every small change, every person who disappears. That's the curse of being a slide. You remember the way things were, even as everyone else's memories shift to match the new reality. You become a living archive of worlds that no longer exist, or maybe never existed. I can't tell the difference anymore. Dr. Owens says they're working on a way to stabilize things, to stop the sliding. They have scientists from 12 countries working together, sharing research, running experiments. But I can see it in her eyes. She doesn't believe it. She's scared. We're all scared. Because the truth is, I don't think I'm going home. I don't think any of us are. Home isn't a place you can go back to. It's a moment in time, a specific version of reality. And once you slip out of it, you can never find your way back. You can only keep falling, hoping that maybe one of these infinite Earths will feel right enough to stop in. But none of them do. None of them ever do. I'm writing this down because I need someone to know what happened to me, what's happening to all of us. Maybe you're reading this in a version of Earth where none of this makes sense, where the sun has never gone out and reality has never shifted. Maybe you're reading it in a version where everyone knows about the sliding, where it's just a normal part of life now, where people check the news every morning to see what changed overnight. Or maybe tomorrow I'll wake up and this whole facility will be gone. Maybe I'll be somewhere else entirely, surrounded by people who don't remember me, looking up at a sun that's the wrong color, breathing air that tastes like copper and regret. Maybe this version of me will disappear, and another Shaun will slide into my place, confused and lost and wondering where his grace is. All I know for sure is that I came home. I traveled millions of miles through space, faced death and isolation and the vast emptiness of the universe, and I made it back to Earth. But Earth isn't where it should be, and neither am I. And I'm starting to think I never will be again.